Hi, in this second video in this playlist for total beginners, we will start to learn few basic commands. Uh, in the future videos, we will learn more about the commands using uh, um, well, we will try to create some simple objects. This is a better way to learn, but before that, and to be able to follow the uh, tutorials, you need to learn some basic commands. Um, okay, first, when you open 3D Studio Max, you will be presented with those four windows. They are called viewports, and these viewports are the place where you're gonna spend most of your times. This is where you're gonna create your art, and they let you see your objects from different angles. This one is called top. You are looking at your objects from the top. Here it's the left. It's like you are standing here and you're looking in this direction. This is the front. It's like you are standing here and you are looking in this direction, and this is the perspective viewport. Now, just to make things more clear, let's start to create some objects to learn more about the viewports and start learning about some basic commands. Here you have this tab labeled create, and in this tab you have subcategories. These subcategories contains the objects that ships with 3D Studio Max, and they represent special types of objects. The first one is geometry. It lets you create three-dimensional objects. Uh, this subcategory also contains subcategories, different different types of geometry objects. In the standard primitives that you see by default, you have these objects like box, sphere, cylinder, tube, etc. The other tab, when you click it, you see 2D objects like circles, lines, ellipse, rectangle. Here you have also in the shapes, you have also subcategories, different types of shapes. Here you have lights. Also you have different subcategories of lights. Here you have cameras, helpers, space warps, and systems. So let's start with the geometry. Let's create a box. You click box, and with your left mouse you just click and drag. Now you can release your left mouse button and move your mouse up or down to decide the height. Now you click, uh, right click in the active viewport. That means this one that has this yellow frame. Right click to turn off the box command. Otherwise, if you click again, you will be creating another box. Now the object is still selected. You know that because you see its name here. You can change the name. I'm gonna click and highlight the box 001 and type my first object. You can click outside or click enter. Now if you click outside here in an empty space, the object will be deselected. Now you don't see the name. Click on it again, you see it is selected. You can change the color of it by clicking here and choosing a different color. Now, while it is selected, if you want to change its dimensions, you go to this tab. It's called Modify, and you can see its parameters. The length that goes in this direction, the Y direction, width in this direction, and height in the upper direction, the Z direction. Let's say I want to change its length. I can click and drag the spinner, the width, and the height. And by the way, if you want to set any spinner to 0, you can right click the arrow, any arrow. You just right click and you can make it 0. I will increase the width. Okay. Now, if you like to zoom in on the object, use the middle mouse button, the wheel. If you want to pan, you can click on the middle mouse button. You can see this hand, you can pan. Now, you are not moving the object. It's you, the viewer, you, the user. You are moving up and down. The object is not moving. Uh, as you noticed, maybe when you use the middle mouse button, the zoom jumps. If you like to have a smooth zooming, just click on this zoom and click with your left mouse up and down to zoom in smoothly. You can right click to get out from the zoom mode or escape. Let's say I want to work on with this viewport, the perspective viewport. I can maximize it. Instead of having 4 viewports, I can have one. I can use 2 methods for this. I can use Alt W and then Alt W again to go back to the 4 viewports. I can click on this one to maximize the active viewport. I will click it again. The Alt W and this button will maximize the active viewport, the viewport that contains this yellow frame. If I click on this viewport, the front viewport, and by the way, as a tip, when you want to activate another viewport, use the right button, the right mouse button or the middle, and, for a simple reason is that if you use the left mouse button, you will activate the viewport, but you will deselect the object. I'm gonna try it here. Now I'm activating with the left viewport. Now the object is deselected. In our case, it's okay because it's one object, but in some other cases, maybe you have hundreds of objects. You don't, or maybe you have many objects selected and you don't want to select them again. So it's a good practice to activate the viewport using the right mouse button or the middle mouse button. I will click the object again to select it. I'm going to create another object. I'll zoom out a little bit. We'll go to Create panel, Geometry, Standard Primitives. I'll create a sphere. I will click. Now, in the viewport, I will click and drag. Now I can release the mouse button, right click, turn off the sphere command. Now while it is selected, I will rename it my sphere. Enter. While it's selected, I can go to the modify panel and change its radius. I can click here to change its color, make it red. Um, okay, now if I like to move the objects or rotate the objects or scale them, uh, just select the object. To move the object, you go here to select and move, you click, you will have those three axes. Place your mouse on the x-axis and start dragging. Now you are moving the object on the x-axis only. Even if you move your mouse up and down, it will just move on the x-axis, as you can see here at the top viewport. Now I move my mouse on and place it above the y-axis. With the y-axis, it becomes yellow. Now I'm moving. Just watch what's happening here. I'm moving the box on the y. Here you see that it's not it's not moving because I'm moving in this direction, and this front viewport, it's like I'm standing here and I'm looking in this direction. This is for the y. Uh, and by the way, um, when you click your left mouse button to do something inside Max, like moving or scaling or whatever, or playing around with the spinner, while your left mouse is clicked without releasing it. Let's say I'm moving the X, but then I change my mind and I want to put it back the way where it was. Without releasing the left mouse button, just click the right mouse button and it will jump back to where it was. Same thing for the spinners. If I'm moving the spinners up, without releasing the mouse button, the left mouse button, I can click the right mouse button and it will go back to where it was. Now if I want to move my object in a specific distance, I can right click the move, the select and move. This window will show up, this dialog. On the left side where it reads absolute world, you can see the distance of the object relative to the origin, to this point here, 0, 0, 0. And it's the distance from this point to the pivot point. It's the place where the axis is placed here. So it is 29.14 in this direction. In this direction, it is minus 28.65 in this direction. It is minus because here it's 0, the y. If you go up, it's positive. Down, it's minus. Same thing for the x. From here going to the right side, it's positive x. Here, I'm gonna move it. As you can see now, it is minus 20. And okay, this is for the absolute world. But let's say I want to move the object on the x-axis relative to where it is now. It is here now, and I want to move it from here, let's say 15 units. I click here and I type 15, and then I click, it moved 15. If I want to move it up relative to its current place, I can type here like 40, etc. Same thing for the Z. I can move it up and down. Okay, now this is for the move. Now before I jump to the scale and rotate, let me show you how you can orbit around the object. The object will stay the way they are, but you as a viewer, as a user, you want to just walk around your objects to see them from different angles. You have two ways. You can use Control R. You will see this circle. Click inside in the with your left viewport, with your left mouse button, and start orbiting around it. If you place your mouse on this rectangle, you can constrain your orbiting horizontally. Now, even if I move my mouse up and down, the orbit is locked to the horizontal direction. Same thing for this one, but this one, it will orbit vertically. To cancel this yellow circle, press escape on the keyboard or right click. Now, there is another way to do this. Click on the Alt button on the keyboard, and while you are pressing the Alt, press the middle mouse button, the wheel button, and with the wheel button pressed, start moving your mouse. Remember, you should keep your Alt key pressed while you are clicking the middle mouse button and moving your mouse around. Now I will another thing before going to the rotation and scaling, something to notice, those three viewports, top, front and left, they are called orthogonal viewports. And as you can see, they don't have this effect of perspective in them, and this is useful because if an object is far away, the perspective viewport, it's like you are looking through your eyes. If an object is far away, it starts to become smaller, while in the orthogonal viewport, the benefit of the orthogonal viewports is that the relation between objects sizes stay the same. So you know, if an object is twice as big as another object, it will stay twice as big. The distance doesn't affect how the object look like. Also, in the perspective viewport, you have this effect of perspective. Maybe now you don't see it very well because we need maybe more interesting objects to see that, like a house or something big. But the parallel lines, they are not totally parallel. Now you don't see it very well. It doesn't show very well, but these lines, they go down a little bit, and those parallel lines, they meet in some vanishing point somewhere. It's like you are looking through your eyes, but this phenomenon doesn't happen here. The parallel lines, they stay the same. So here you can have a clear idea about your object's shape and the relation between the object's dimensions. Now let's talk about rotation. And by the way, the move tool, you can click here to activate the move tool like we did, but also it has a shortcut which is the W. Now for the rotation, you can click the rotate button, or you can click the E on the keyboard. I typed now E. It is activated. Now you'll see this 3 circles. If I want to rotate on the Z axis, I can place my mouse above the blue circle, and I start to, with my left mouse, rotate the object on the Z axis. Now it is constrained to the Z. Even if I move the mouse up and down, it will just move on the Z axis. If I want to move on the X axis, I place my mouse on the red circle and start rotating. Now I will click the right mouse button while the left mouse is pressed to put it back to where it was. Same thing for the Y. If I click here in the middle, I can rotate the object freely in all directions. Right click. I forgot to mention here when I was explaining the move tool, I was talking about how to constrain the movement on the Y and Z, but also, let's say you want to move on the X and Y at the same time. Just place your mouse on this rectangle until it is yellow. As you can see, the Y and X becomes yellow. So now you can move freely on the X and Y, but not on the Z. If I place my mouse here on this rectangle, now I can move on the Y and Z plane. And here on the X and Z. I will press E to go back to the rotation. I can right click the rotate. Again, you have the absolute. It is relative to its origin. You know, when we created the box, everything here was 0, 0, 0. This is relative to its original position. The box now is rotated 31 degrees, 0.49. If I right click here to make it 0, it will go back to its original rotation. The same thing here for offset. The offset is, if I want to rotate the object on its Z-axis, but relative to its current position, I can type 15. I can type 15 again. It will keep turning 15. So this is same as in move. This is relative to its current position. This is an offset. If I want to put it back to its original orientation on the Z, I can right click here and it's 0 again. Now for the scale, it has a shortcut of R. You can press R or press here. Like, if you place your mouse in the middle, you are scaling in all directions. All axes are yellow. If I want to scale it on the x-axis, I can place my mouse here. It becomes yellow, and I can stretch it. Same thing for Y. Same thing for Z. I also can right click, and here also in the absolute it is relative to its original size. Now it is 88%, 88.79% of its original Y scale. I can put it back to 100. Here on the Z it became it is bigger than it is original scale, original size. It is 76% bigger, so I can put it back to 100. Now it's back again to where it was, the way it was. And here it's the offset, same thing. It's relative to its current size, so I can type 110. It is scaling in all directions. Then I can put again 120. As you can see here, it's incrementing 10 plus 12 plus 20, it's now 132 in all directions. 110 again. So it is increment. I can put it back again to 100 by typing 100, 100, and 100. Okay, now let's say let's say you have many objects and you want to see them all inside your viewport, or maybe you zoomed out a lot and you lost your objects or something. You can just click Z on the keyboard. It will zoom extends everything. But if an object is selected and you press Z, you will zoom in on the selected object. Now, if I want to see the wireframe version of the objects, now we are seeing the shaded version. As you can see, you are seeing the colors here. If I want to see the wireframe version, I can press F3. These are the edges, the segments. If I press F3 again, now if I want to see the shaded version and the wireframe at the same time, I can press F4. Now as you can see, I'm seeing the shaded version and I can see the edges, the segments. Now these objects, when I click this object and you can see here I can change its parameters. Objects that you can manipulate through these type of parameters, they are called parametric objects, and because you simply can manipulate them only through few parameters. We will see later how we can change the nature of the object to make it something else, like editable poly, where you can enter its sub-object level. That means the elements that makes the object, like the segments, like the faces, like the points on the edges, so we can manipulate manually the object and create different type of shapes. But here we don't have this freedom. We can just, for example, in the case of a sphere, I can change the radius, I can change the segment, the amount of polygons that makes this sphere. If I make them less, it will become less smooth, less amount of polygons. We already saw on the first video that these polygons are straight. Uh, I will increase the resolution of the sphere again to make it more smooth. In the case of a box, I can increase the number of polygons. Now it has six faces. I can increase the height segment. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 polygons here and 5 here. I can change the width segments on the X direction. Now and on the Y. Okay. Let's say I want to hide. Let's add another object. Let's add a cylinder. Click the cylinder and I'll click and drag to set the radius. Now I release the mouse button and move the mouse up or down and then click to set the height. Right click to disable this, to deactivate the cylinder command. Now while it's selected, let's rename it. Cylinder new. It doesn't matter, just we are getting used to renaming objects and stuff like that. Change the color. I can go, I select it and I go to modify panel. I can change the radius, the height, the height segment. Now it has 5 height segment. You can count them: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Side is 18. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4. It has 18 segment in this direction. Okay, I'm gonna make them less just to make you see. Now I make them 3. 1, 2, 3. And the height segment 4, 3, 2, 1. I will increase the sides again. The cap segment, it's here. You can make it 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now let's say I want to hide some objects. Sometimes you have many objects and you want to work with few only. You can select an object, right click and choose hide selection. Now I will right click again and unhide all. I can select many objects at the same time. I can click here and drag a rectangle. Now it reads 2 objects selected. Now the rectangle doesn't have to cover all the objects. You just need to touch them. Unless you change the default here, this icon, if you click it, it will become like this. In this case, the rectangle has to cover all the objects to be selected. Now, for example, I will click and drag. As you can see, only the cylinder is selected, not this one, not the sphere. I will set it back to the default. Let's say I want, okay, now let's say I want to select these objects, I don't want to hide them. I want to hide the ones that are not selected. I can right click and say hide unselected. The boxes. The box is hidden now. Right click, unhide all. Now I will hide those two objects, hide selection. Now let's say I want to unhide specific objects. I don't want to hide, I don't want to, sorry, I don't, if I want to unhide specific objects, not all the objects, I can right click and say unhide by name. A window will open. Sorry. I can choose the cylinder new and say unhide. Now, lastly, for this video, let's say I want to save my scene. I can go here, save as, I can type a name. I will choose the same name as this one. Say when you choose save, you are saving a file with a max.max extension. I'll save. It's asking if I want to replace. Okay, yes. Let's say I want to have a clean max file. Instead of closing 3D Studio Max and open a new max file, I can go to file and say reset. Before I say yes here, the file is it's called 3D Studio Max lesson 1. I will click yes for the reset. As you can see now, it's untitled. It's like it's the same as closing Max and opening a new Max file. If I want to open a Max file, I can go here, open. I can choose this one. Now let's say I want to send my 3D objects to another application like Maya or SketchUp or AutoCAD or whatever. These applications cannot open a .max file, but they can accept a different kind of 3D file, different formats like OBJ or 3D Studio S. In this case, the counterpart of saving is export. Now I can select and export specific objects, or I can just say export. I can export the whole scene. I will go to the directory. Here you can see the extensions that you can export to, like 3D Studio S, like OBJ, like AutoCAD, FBX. This is the AutoCAD. I will choose let's say the OBJ. Let's see, I'll call it lesson 1. Save. You have some options. I will just say export. Done. Now I will reset again. If I want to bring those, let's say somebody sent me some objects, send me some 3D models in a format like OBJ. If I want to bring those objects inside Max, I cannot use the open. Open only works for Max files. So if I want to bring 3D objects from a different formats, different extension, like 3D Studio S or OBJ or AutoCAD, I have to use import. I will go to my folder. As you can see here, lesson 1 OBJ, the one that I exported. So I click on it. has some options here. Just click here. You have the option to choose. Inside the file you have two objects. I can uncheck one of them. I will check them both and click import. Um, for now I think it's enough. It was a bit a long video. Uh, in the next video we will continue talking about some basic commands, and starting from the fourth video we will start to learn more about 3D Studio Max using small examples like creating some objects. This will make us learn quicker, more quickly, and it will be more fun. And thank you for watching.